Hey, I got to tell you something. You're not going to believe this, but Michael was in Columbus, Ohio last night, up on a stage in front of a whole bunch of people leading worship. We flew home late, and Michael said, "Can we come with you?" And I said, "Why?" He said, "I don't want to miss chapel tomorrow." So he flew half the night to come back here. Give Michael a big hand today. Well, I was in Columbus, Ohio yesterday, and that's 50 miles from where I grew up. And I grew up, obviously, with my sister, Maryalyce. She's a little bit younger than I am. She'll probably like to tell you that she's a lot younger than I am, but she's not. She's just a little bit younger than I am. And as long as I can remember, Maryalyce has been a competitor. She was a great athlete in high school and college. She played college basketball, and then she became a coach. She coached, first of all, at Cedarville University, where we went to school. Then she went to Dayton University and coached there. She won a national championship there in the division in which they play women's basketball. And she has a degree from Ohio State University, and after her Dayton University coaching career, she went to the University of Indiana and coached alongside of Bobby Knight, and she survived that. And she did really well, won the Big Ten. And then when I moved to California in 1981, 2 or 3 years later, she said, "I'm coming to California." And she was going to be through with coaching. That's what she told me. She came out here, and Cal State Fullerton found out she was out here on the West Coast, and they hired her. And she coached women's basketball at Cal State Fullerton for 2 or 3 years, and then moved into administration. Supposedly retired now, but she didn't act like it. She runs around the country doing motivational speeches, and what she's going to talk to you about today is really cool. We're both older than this comment works, but please give it up for my little sister. This is Maryalyce Jeremiah.
Check out the shirt. I was hoping my brother wouldn't be here today because I don't worry about what I'm wearing or what I'm doing when he's not around. But I am so happy to be with you, and the lights are so bright I can't see you. But let me tell you about the cane. That's not about my age. I had my hip replaced 6 months ago, and 3 months after I had it replaced, it dislocated. And you do not want that. That was probably my fault because 9 weeks after the surgery, I thought I'm done. And I started doing everything a little too soon, tore some muscles that hold your hip in place, and I reached for a Keurig cup of coffee one morning, and my hip was gone. But I'm good now, but I just have to be careful, and I have to keep rehabbing. And that's why I have the hip, and I'm going to try to stand up as much as I can. But to start with, I'm going to sit down. I have spoken to so many college-age kids and high school kids, and I got to tell you, it's one of my favorite groups because you guys are so fun to be with, and I am a lot younger than he is. But he's great. Isn't he great? He is just great. I'm so proud of my brother. He's the best preacher I've ever heard. He makes the Bible practical. And even though I accepted Jesus Christ in my life when I was very young, what his ministry and his knowledge of the Word of God does in my life is amazing. And to be here on this campus with all of you is a real treat for me. I want to talk to you about something that I think is really important. You know, I saw on your website that somebody came out here and stood on their hands and did some stuff. I'm not going to do any of that because what I want to talk to you about, I have no big crisis in my life. My life has been really pretty blessed and pretty easy, and I've gotten to do the thing that I love to do the most, and that's coach basketball. I love the sport. I retired from doing that several years ago. Does this mic have a kickback? Are we okay? Tell me. Somebody holler, step back. I don't care. I'm okay. We okay? All right. About 3 years before I stopped coaching, I got real interested in something that I started reading about, and it was high mountain climbing. I started reading about everything I could about what people do when they climb Everest. And I don't know what made me interested in this. I love the mountains, I love the ocean. But the people that climb Everest, there's something about them that made me real interested in what they did, why they did it, why they took these risks. And it made me decide, as I read more and more about it in my coaching and as I worked with kids, and then as I got out and started talking to businesses and was able to do some things, that our lives are just like what they do. What you're doing today in your life is just what high mountain climbers do. You think, oh, well, I don't climb mountains. Yes, you do. You climb mountains in your own life. And when mountain climbers decide to do this, they go through 6 steps, and you go through the same 6 steps in your life. And you're going through those right now. So what I want to talk to you about today are the mountains that you are climbing right now. Because you are at a point in your life where, frankly, I wouldn't want to go be there right now. You have so many things that you're excited about, that you're worried about, that you're afraid of, that you can't wait to do, don't want to do. You're in school, and you're climbing a mountain, and you're doing the exact same thing that people who climb Everest do. And I want to talk to you about that today, and I want you to try to picture in your own mind, what are your high places? And as a result of all this, I started a little business called yourhighplaces.com. Sometimes, don't look it up now on your phone, but you can look it up sometime. And I want to be your coach today. You're the team, I'm the coach. This is what I would say to my own team if I had 30 minutes or 25 minutes to talk to them. And the first thing I would say to my team, because I coached mostly in secular institutions, is that I want you to know the most important thing in my life. If you're going to play for me in my gym, I want you to know the most important thing in my life. And I can remember the first time I did this at the University of Dayton, and even though it was a Catholic school, it was a secular school. And not many people probably knew Christ as their Savior. And I remember this as much as it was, and every single year in my life that I did this, I felt the same thing, sweat rolling down my back. And I kind of feel it now, but not quite as much because I know where I am. The most important thing in my life is my relationship to Jesus Christ. And I can remember so many of my players like, oh no. And they would look at me like, oh no. And then I would say to them, I know that's not maybe the most important thing in your life, but because it is in mine, there are certain things that I will ask you to do that maybe other coaches wouldn't ask. One of those things is don't ever in the gym take the name of the Lord in vain, because that offends the most important person in my life. I cannot stop what you do in the locker room. I cannot stop what you do someplace else. But for me, your coach, I would like that you would never do that. And then I would pray daily that God would help me. And believe me, I know all the words. I know them all, just like you know them all. And I would pray that daily He would help me not ever to swear and say one word of profanity in front of my players any day in my life that I coached. I coached for 35 years. And because of God's blessings in my life, I did never do it. Now, does that mean I never did it? Probably not. But in front of those kids where Jesus Christ was the most important thing in my life, I wanted them to know that. If they want to know more, they can ask me. Never pushed it on them, but they needed to know me. And I want to tell you something, young people. Whatever is most important in your life, if you want people to know you, you better tell them what it is. It may not be this. Maybe something else. People can't know you unless they know you. And what's important in your life is how they know you. And one of the things that's important in your life are the high places. When mountain climbers climb Everest, they do 6 things. They discover their high place, they commit to their high place, they train, they climb, they go through pitfalls, and they summit. You're doing the same thing. Whatever it is that you aspire to do, maybe it's get along with your parents. Maybe it's get along with each other. Maybe it's find that girlfriend or boyfriend that you really like, or that significant person in your life that you'd like to be closer to. Maybe it's the faculty members. You just can't handle the teachers. And teachers, maybe you can't handle some of the students. I loved all my players. Did I get along with some of them better than others? Absolutely. Was I happy when some of the seniors were gone? Absolutely. And you know what? They were happy when I was not in their life, too. So many things in my life as a coach taught me about high mountain climbing. What is your high place? And I'll tell you something, your high place is not something that's easy. I want to win the lottery. Go figure, you're not going to win the lottery. Some of you may want to play professional sports. That's a great aspiration and a great high place, but you got to think about the probability of that. But what's that hard thing in your life? Maybe today it's getting an A in a class. Maybe tomorrow it's getting into the college you want to get into. For some of you that haven't got into high school yet, maybe it's being somebody in a high school. Whatever it is, and you have so many things, I could never even go through all of them. But once you discover that high place and you say, I want that, I really want to achieve that, there's a verse that goes along with my business. The Lord is my strength. He will make my feet like hinds' feet, and he will make me walk on my high places. Now, a hind in that verse is a deer. And if you've ever looked at a deer's feet, they're very small. And when God makes a deer's feet walk on mountains, do you know what they do? That's what he does for us. He makes us walk on our high places. He's the strength that does that. So whatever your high place is, you discover it. Now, the next thing is the commitment to it. The best definition I've ever heard for commitment is this. Commitment is doing what you said you will do when the mood you said it in is over. Ooh, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to lose weight. And when do you say it? When you're not hungry. Right? I'm going to be the best husband or the best wife. When do you say it? At your wedding. Right? All of a sudden, the mood is over. I've said that about weight 100 times in my life. And when do I say it? When I'm not hungry. And then I want chocolate. I want chocolate. And thinking, oh, well, okay, I'll have that. Not commitment. Doing what you said you will do. I'm going to get an A in that class. I'm going to go home and be nicer to my mom and dad. I'm going to be a better friend. I'm going to work for what I get, right? I'm not going to expect everybody to give it to me, because sometimes you're told at this age you expect everything, right? I'm going to do it myself. It's a high place. I want it. The Lord is my strength. He will make my feet walk like hinds' feet, and he will make me walk on my high places. Then I commit to it. Now I'm going to train for it. I'm going to train for it. I want to share something with you that I think is very relevant about this. Rob Hall was a guy who used to lead expeditions to Everest. And when they did that, they brought people together, and when they first came together, he had this on his advertisement. Most of us never dare act on our dreams, and scarcely venture to share them or admit to greater inner yearnings. Most of us never even act on what we dream about. We just dream it. A high place isn't a dream. A high place is something you accomplish. You can accomplish a high place. And then he said, this is my best part of this. We will not drag you up a mountain. You will have to work hard, and for those of you who dare to face their dreams, the experience offers something special beyond the power of words to describe. We invite you to climb your mountain with us. That's what God does. He's inviting us to climb our high places with him. But he ain't going to drag you. He ain't going to make you do it. No one is. And if you go through your life thinking somebody's always going to help you do what you could do yourself, give it up. It ain't going to happen that way. The high places that you achieve are the ones that you do and you work hard. I know my brothers and in my family, we were very competitive. All of us were. I can remember when I was in the 7th grade, I had a football helmet, and I played football with my brothers, and David was one of the players. And I was a big Cleveland Brown fan, and if you watched the game the other night, don't ask me why, because they were pretty awful. But there's something about me that's a little bit about the Cleveland Browns. And by the way, I'm also a Patriot fan, and I know that's not popular in California. But we were out playing football one day, and I was in the 7th grade, and I had my helmet. And I went to catch a pass that somebody had thrown to me, and someone intercepted that pass. And I was so angry that I took the football and spiked it down into that guy's face. His teeth went through his bottom lip. And David does not remember this, but he went in and said to my mother, please take her football helmet away from her. Because I think at that age I probably needed to. I wanted to be the first female quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Now, that's a high place, right? Not going to happen. But I did my best up until the time I was in the 7th grade to show people that I could play. But the thing is, in your life, young people, nobody's going to drag you. You've got to work hard at it. And a high mountain accomplishment is something that once you achieve something in your life, whatever it is, maybe some of you don't even know what it is. Maybe some of you don't. But you know what's a yearning in you. You know what's out there that you wish could be better. Maybe some of you are really kind of shy and you don't know how to meet people and you'd like to be better at that. Or maybe you feel left out. Or maybe you're the ones that are popular and you don't really know that the blessing of being popular comes with that making sure that you know how to bring others in and that it's not about you. It's about Him. It's about what He does in our lives. And sometimes when we're really, we think we're really pretty good at something and we forget that it's not anything in ourselves. It's because Jesus Christ lives in our heart. He is our strength. He makes our feet like hinds feet, and He will make us walk on our high places. Then you know what we do after we commit? We train. Oh boy. Training is tough. You're an athlete, you know what I'm talking about. But you know what happens in training? We get afraid. And we will not try something different. We will not try to go the extra mile. I was at Indiana University and I had recruited a young player from Canada. She was a great point guard and I was so happy to have her. The first 4 weeks of our season was preseason. You guys know about that play. And we do a lot of short distance, 100s, 110s, 220s, things that you're doing to train for short distance. I always say in basketball, if you can stay in shape, if you're in shape and you can play for 5 minutes, you can play because there's so many timeouts and so many stop clocks that you can just recover in those times. But we were running these sprints and we had come to the end and I had already told the players, if you cannot do one more and you know in your life that you have done today all you can do, just come up and tell me and you don't have to run the last 2. So Linda comes up to me. She had already lost her breakfast once. And she came up to me and she said, Coach, I just can't do one more. I can't do one more. I feel so terrible. I said, okay, I believe you. And I'm very trusting. And all the players would always get on me, Coach, you're so gullible, you believe everything. Yeah, I trust you till you give me a reason not to. That's the way I want to live my life. So I said, okay, you don't have to do it anymore. So she went over and sat down and we were on the starting line. And I thought, I wonder. So I waited a little bit extra long before I started the last 2 sprints. And as I looked over, Linda gets up, who can't do one more. And she goes over and she stands at the starting line. I didn't say anything. I started them. She won the next 2 sprints. I'll never forget that. And it's happened in your life. When you think you can't do it anymore, just ask yourself. And I'm not talking about running, because for those of us that are used to that, that's easy. I'm talking about being kind, being patient, studying a little longer, being nicer to your friends, doing the things that God would have us do to be on our high place, to be going there all the time. That's exactly what high mountain climbers do. Then, as you train, you start to climb. All right? You're getting better. Now, let me tell you this. When you practice and you fail, you don't fail. You're practicing. You're just practicing. I wish I had learned that early in my coaching years for my players. Because when you think that you try something and you don't do it right, you think you fail. But if you're willing to try it again, and you're willing to keep climbing, there's a saying in high mountain climbing, it does not matter how slow you go, as long as you keep climbing. And when people start to climb in high mountains, and the altitude gets really not very easy to be in, no oxygen, their pitfalls are those kinds of pitfalls. Yours are fear, yours are resentment, yours are fear of failure, you want to give up. They can't breathe, they can't metabolize food, they can't sleep, but they keep going, and let me show you how they go. Step. 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 Have you climbed like that yet in your life? Do you feel like that's where you are right now? You're not. You can always take another step in the high place of your life that is somewhat God ordained. You can always take another step. And the pitfalls that you face are the ones that are the most difficult. I know I don't have very much time, so I gotta scoot through this so that I can get to the thing that's the most fun. The thing that's the most fun is the summit. When you get there, when you win, when you get where you're going. But when you have things like relationships and peer pressure and deadlines and parents and roommates and faculties and the desire for freedom as being some of your high places, you got to learn to take a step like that and go a little bit slower. And in the Bible, you know, there are so many times when God has given us survival experiences, what He's done for the Israelites. You know, the other day I was not doing so well about something. I was very annoyed at something. And I was impatient. And I started to whine, complain, make little comments. That's what we do. We're human. And God brought to my mind, I think I'm an Israelite. I think I'm just whining in the wilderness. I'm complaining about some little thing that has so no significance in the big picture at all. And then you know what I thought of? I'm so happy that I know this about God's provision for the Israelites. He gave them manna. He gave them food in spite of the fact that they complained. And they survived because God wants us to survive. And survival is something that makes us know that we have to use our strengths. And we have to really pressure our strengths. We have to realize that while we have weaknesses, our strengths are what we really need to really emphasize. Because when all we think about is what we can't do, that's what we do. We can do it. And we have to balance it. You know, someone told me a long time ago that what makes you good makes you bad. Really, really true. What makes you good makes you bad. I want to move around. Okay, here we go. Now I'm more comfortable. I can sit down, I can stand up, I can do what I want. This thing is kind of in your face. Okay, I want to give you some steps, some things that I think will help you, in your high climb. Maybe some of you will get them when you walk out of here. I got a little magnet for everybody that's going to remind you of some of the things that we talked about today, and hopefully someone here will pick it up and it'll help you. The magnet, I think you can put somewhere that will remind you. Prepare, don't panic. All right? You got to prepare to be strong. If you have something big that you have to do, you have to prepare. You have to practice. You have to be willing to do what you think is failure, but it's not. If you're an athlete, if you're an artist, if you are giving a speech, whatever you have to do in your daily life, I'll tell you something else you have to practice. You have to practice with your parents. They have to practice with you. You have to practice with your faculty, with the adults. A lot of you are high school kids. You want to be on your own. I don't blame you. I did too. You want to, and yet you don't and you do. You want them when you want them, and you don't want them when you don't want them. You don't want them telling you what to do, and yet you kind of do want them telling you what to do. You have to prepare for that. And don't panic when things don't work your way. Try again. Step, step. That's what high mountain climbers do. And when you prepare with intensity, then when things come that are hard for you, you'll be ready. And you won't say that every time I do something I fail. I don't fail. I'm practicing. I'm so happy that God gives us another day. He gives us another moment. He gives us another try. And what we do, not only when we're young, but when we get older, we start thinking, I can't do this. I'm just always going to fail. No, I'm not failing. I'm practicing. And one day when I practice and practice and practice, I'm going to get it. I'll tell you another step. So one of them is prepare, don't panic. Another one is obey, don't order. When mountain climbers go to Everest, they have somebody that tells them what to do. Many, many years ago, the same Rob Hall that I quoted a minute ago went with a group up to Mount Everest. He thought that one of the guys that he was taking up there had already summited but hadn't come back down yet. So he was up in the death zone, very close to the Hillary step, waiting for the guy that he thought was up above. And then he realized that the guy that was up above had already gone down. And Rob Hall lost his life on Mount Everest, waiting for someone who did not obey. Sometimes you just can't tell somebody else what to do. Sometimes you have to pay attention and obey them. Now, here's another one. Focus, don't fear. Now, what's focus mean? Here's another high climbing illustration. How many of you ever heard of Bear Grylls? He has a, all right, you're right, I like it. He has his own adventure show, right? Well, Bear Grylls was the youngest Brit to ever climb Mount Everest. And when you climb Everest, you go from base camp to Camp 1. And then you go back down. And you wait a while. When you wait down there to get more red blood cells so oxygen can carry the blood through your body, then you go back up to Camp 2. And then you go back down. And you do the same thing. Then you go back up to Camp 3 and Camp 4, up, down, up, down. It is said that people who climb Everest and summit climb Everest essentially 5 times to get to the summit. Up and down, and up and down. And if you don't do that, you don't have enough red blood cells, and you're not going to summit, and you're likely to die if you don't come back down when you're supposed to, because it's so high. Next time you're in an airplane and they say, welcome to the friendly skies, you're flying at 27,000 feet, that's how high Mount Everest is. Look out, can't see anything down, that's how high Mount Everest is. And you know what? Mount Everest is the same as your mountains. It's the same. We do the same thing. Focus, don't fear. What Bear Grylls did, he got to the top, almost to Camp 4. He was in Camp 4. The summit's right. Well, in Camp 4, you don't breathe well, you don't metabolize food, and you don't sleep. You have like 10% of the oxygen you need. And he's almost there. And let me tell you something. You know where the summit is? The summit is just above where you want to quit. You ever had that happen to you? You stop and then, oh, why'd I stop? It's just there. When he got there, the moisture in his goggles was bothering him. He took off his goggles in the death zone, and his eyeball immediately froze to his eyelid, and he was essentially blind. Now, I use that as an illustration of focus. He forgot you can't do that there. You got to focus on what you're doing. You got to pay attention. You can't be distracted to reach your high place. You have to focus. So what did he do? All the way down to base camp. Most of us would have gone back to Kathmandu and flown home. But he didn't. He waited till his eyes got better, got unfrozen, and he started all over again. And he was the youngest Brit to ever summit Mount Everest. So you got to focus. Pray, don't procrastinate. Don't put off something. Don't put it off. When you got to do something to make that summit thing happen, just pray about it a little bit. And let me tell you something. Praying, we used to say in coaching, if your mind can conceive it and your heart can believe it, you can achieve it. Not true. If your mind can conceive it and your heart can believe it, you can achieve it if you do it. You can't just do it because you believe it. You got to do it. You got to do things to make things happen for yourself. So don't procrastinate, and don't just sit there and pray about it. Do something. Rest, don't run. Sometimes you need to be at base camp. Sometimes you need to take a break. I took a break at something the other day, and this is going to seem something really, really simple for all you techno people. I couldn't get an external hard drive to work on my computer. My computer didn't, because I wasn't doing something right, obviously. And I worked and worked and worked and worked and worked, and I thought, this is a waste of time. I let it go by. I remembered this. Rest, don't run. Give it a rest. I went back, got it to work. Because sometimes when we're pushing so hard and we don't take a rest, then we just make things worse when we're trying to reach those high places in our lives. And then one more, win, don't worry. And these are kind of little quippy things that you can use that might help. It means that at the end of the day, you look back and see what has made it successful, what needs to be done to improve tomorrow, and what are the main things that detract you from winning. Never quitting. Never quitting. And I know you've been told this so many times. How much time do I have? Can I read you a story? I'll read you a story. All right, I'll read you a story. But before, I want to tell you what it's like to summit. This is Bear Grylls. As I drew closer, my eyes welled up with tears. As I staggered those last few feet, I felt as if I was pulling all of my emotions of the last year in a sledge behind me. Weary and broken, remember, he's the one that had to go back down. Weary and broken, I was slowly getting closer to the small place that had captured my imagination since I was a boy. Those last 100 meters were undoubtedly the longest of my life as they crept slowly beneath me. Yet eventually, at 7:22, on the morning of July 6th, with tears creeping down my cheeks inside my goggles, the summit of Mount Everest opened her arms and welcomed me. It was as if she now considered me somehow worthy of this place. My pulse raced, and in a vacant haze, I suddenly found myself standing on top of the world. That's what summiting something in your life that you choose to be your high place means. The Lord is my strength. He will make my feet like hinds' feet, and He will make me walk on my high places. Here's my story, and I'm done, okay? It's about a race. Maybe some of you have heard this. If you have, you heard the race? Yes or no? You want to hear it? All right. All right. This is about a race. All right. Quit, give up, you're beaten, they shout and plead. There's just too much against you now. This time you can't succeed. And as I start to hang my head in front of failure's face, my downward fall is broken by the memory of a race. And hope refills my weakened will as I recall that scene, for just the thought of that short race rejuvenates my being. A children's race, young children, young boys and girls, how I remember well. Excitement, sure, but also fear. It wasn't hard to tell. They all lined up so full of hope, each thought to win that race, or tie for first, or if not that, at least take second place. And fathers watched from off the side, each cheering for their own, and each boy hoped to show his dad that he would be the one. The whistle blew and off they went, young hearts and hopes of fire, to win, to be the hero. That was each boy's desire. And one boy in particular, his mom was in the crowd, was running near the lead and thought, my mom would be so proud. And as he speeded down the field across a shallow dip, the little boy who thought to win lost his step and slipped. Trying hard to catch himself, his hand flew out to brace, and amid the laughter of the crowd, he fell flat on his face. So down he fell, and with him hope he couldn't win it now. Embarrassed, sad, he only wished to disappear somehow. But as he fell, his mom stood up and showed her anxious face, which to the boy so clearly said, get up and win that race. He quickly rose, no damage done, behind a bit, that's all, and he ran with all his might and mind to make up for his fall. So anxious to restore himself, to catch up and to win, his mind went faster than his legs, and he slipped and fell again. He wished that he had quit before with only one disgrace. I'm hopeless as a runner now, he said. I shouldn't try to race. But in the laughing crowd, he searched and found his mother's face, that steady look that said again, get up and win that race. So up he jumped to try again, 10 yards behind the last. If I'm to gain those yards, he thought, I've got to run real fast. Exciting everything he had, he regained 8 or 10, but trying too hard to catch the lead, he slipped and fell again. I don't know why you're clapping, because he fell. Defeat, he laid there silently, a tear dropped from his eye. There's no no sense to running anymore. 3 strikes, I'm out, why try? The will to rise had disappeared, all hopes had fled away. So far behind, so error-prone, closer all the way, I've lost. So what's the use, he thought, I'll live with my disgrace. But then he thought about his mother, and soon he'd have to face. Get up, an echo shouted, get up and take your place. And this is for you guys. You were not meant for failure here. Get up and win that race. With borrowed will, get up, it said. You haven't lost it all, for winning is not more than this, to rise each time you fall. So up he rose to win once more, and with a new commit, he resolved that win or lose, at least he wouldn't quit. So far behind the others now, he'd ever seen, and still he gave it all he had and ran as though to win. 3 times he had fallen, stumbling, 3 times he rose again. Too far behind to hope to win, still he ran to the end. They cheered the winning runner as he crossed the line first place. Head high, proud and happy, no falling, no disgrace. But when the fallen youngster crossed the line last place, the crowd gave him the greatest cheer for finishing the race. And even though he came in last, with head bowed low, unproud, you would have thought he won that race to listen to the crowd. And to his mom, he sadly said, I didn't do so well. To me, You won, she said. You rose each time you fell. And now when things seem dark and hard and difficult to face, the memory of that little boy helps me in my own race. For life, all of life is like that race with ups and downs and all you have to do to win is rise each time you fall. Quit, give up, you're beaten. They still shout in my face. But another voice within me says, get up and win that race. And let me tell you what it's about. And you got to listen to this. It matters not if you try and fail and try again. It matters much more if you try and fail to try again. All right? Thank you. From this coach to my Christian High Patriot team, keep climbing.